North Korea is often considered a country under dictatorship and oppression. But what if he told you that decades ago, the world saw a display of even more extreme forms of dictatorship and tyranny? This is a true story of Jean-Bédel Bokassa, who ruled the Central African Republic from 1966 to 1979, first as president for life and then as emperor. But like I said, his leadership was far from fair. Bokassa became infamous for his harsh rule, greed, and strange behavior. He abused power, ignored human rights, and spent crazy money on himself. It is also rumored that he consumed human flesh. So let's explore the era of this notorious dictator, and I'll let you compare it with modern-day dictatorships. Jean-Bédel Bokassa's rule started on January 1st, 1966, when he seized power in the Central African Republic through a military coup d'etat. Here's what happened. The whole event began the night before, on New Year's Eve, when President David Dacko left the Renaissance Palace to visit a minister's plantation. Little did he know, Bokassa and his loyal allies were already putting their plan in motion. An hour and a half before midnight, Bokassa called Colonel Izamo to Camp Daru under the pretense of signing urgent documents. When Izamo arrived, he was told about the coup, but he strongly opposed it. This didn't sit well with Bokassa, who had him locked up in an underground cellar. By midnight, Bokassa and his supporters had seized control of Banjul, the capital city. They searched for Dacko, fearing he might have already escaped or been warned. Eventually, soldiers found him and arrested him. Bokassa, attempting to appear friendly, hugged Dacko, but made it clear it was too late to undo the coup. By 3 a.m., Bokassa addressed the nation through Radio Banjul, declaring the hour of justice had arrived and promising a new era of equality. With just a few hours of chaos and careful planning, Bokassa had overthrown the government and claimed absolute power. So, did he start as a cruel ruler? Not at all. In fact, things were totally the opposite. During the early days of his rule, Bokassa focused on building his image as a strong and fearless leader. Forming a new government called the Revolutionary Council, Bokassa wasted no time dismantling the old systems. He abolished the National Assembly, calling it a lifeless organ that no longer served the people, and promised sweeping reforms for the future. Standing before the nation, Bokassa assured his citizens that elections would eventually restore democracy, a new constitution would emerge, and national stability would replace corruption and chaos. Now, that's some bold promises, and for the time being, it looked like he's fulfilling all the promises he made. Bokassa introduced strict rules, such as requiring adults to prove employment or face fines and imprisonment, banning begging, and monitoring public morality through a morality brigade. Traditional practices like dowries, polygamy, and female circumcision were outlawed. He also sought to improve urban life by establishing a public transport system in Banjul with buses and ferry service. Despite these efforts, gaining international recognition for his government proved challenging. Bokassa justified his coup by accusing political enemies, including communist agents, of corrupting the country. He severed ties with China and claimed his actions were necessary to save the nation. His hard work finally paid off when nearby countries, starting with Chad, began to officially recognize his government. Bokassa focused on building these relationships and even warned that he might even leave the CFA franc monetary zone to push France into accepting his rule. Eventually, in late 1966, French President Charles de Gaulle visited the Central African Republic, showing that France acknowledged Bokassa's leadership. So far, it seemed like Bokassa would become a true leader of his nation, with a strong relationship with France and recognition from other countries. However, things turned out a bit messy. Bokassa and his deputy, Banza, started having serious disagreements about the country's money. Banza didn't like how much Bokassa was spending, and this caused a lot of tension between them. By 1967, Bokassa asked France for help, and French soldiers were sent to Banjul to protect him. France suggested getting rid of Banza, but Bokassa decided to just demote him and keep him in the government. Things got really bad in 1969 when Banza attempted to overthrow Bokassa, but someone he worked with betrayed him. Bokassa set up an ambush, and Banza was captured and beaten badly. After a trial, he was sentenced to death by firing squad. Then came the time when Bokassa's ambition seemed to have no limits. By 1971, he promoted himself to the rank of full general, and on March 4, 1972, he declared himself president for life. Despite this, his position was not entirely secure, as he survived another coup attempt in December 1974. A month later, on January 2, 1975, he gave up his role as prime minister, appointing Elizabeth Domitian as his replacement. Over time, Bokassa's leadership became more unpredictable. This led to another assassination attempt in February 1976 in Banjul Mpoko International Airport. On the international front, he maintained powerful allies. Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi supported him, as did France. France provided financial and military aid, receiving uranium in return, which was vital for their nuclear programs during the Cold War. Bokassa's relationship with France reached its peak during his extravagant imperial coronation as Emperor Bokassa I on December 4, 1977. The two-day event cost a staggering 10 million GBP, far exceeding Car's annual budget, and included a throne resembling a bronze eagle and a crown designed by a Parisian jeweler. However, scandals emerged, including the Diamonds Affair, where Bokassa reportedly gifted diamonds to French President Giscard in 1973. This controversy tarnished Giscard's reputation and was a factor in his defeat during the 1981 re-election. Relations between Bokassa and France got worse when he sought alignment with Libya's Gaddafi. Following a 1976 meeting, Bokassa converted to Islam, adopting the name Salah ad-Din Ahmad Bokassa. The sole reason behind this was getting Libyan financial support. However, when the expected aid did not materialize and he needed to proceed with his Catholic coronation plans, he reverted to Christianity. Finally, in September 1976, Bokassa replaced the government with the Central African Revolutionary Council. A few months later, he went back to Catholicism and changed the Central African Republic into the Central African Empire. The same day, he crowned himself Emperor Bokassa I in a highly extravagant ceremony inspired by Napoleon. You'll be shocked to know that the event cost $20 million. This means he used up a third of the country's annual budget and all of France's financial aid for that year. And now, here's something more shocking. It was rumored that Bokassa ate human flesh. During his trial, witnesses, including his own chef, claimed they had cooked human meat for him. They said the palace even had human carcasses stored in freezers. At one point, during his grand coronation, Bokassa allegedly told a French ambassador that he unknowingly ate human meat too. But it didn't add to his criminal record. Why? Because eating human flesh was just a minor offense under the Central African Republic law, and all minor crimes were forgiven in 1981 through a general amnesty. Bokassa also promised the people that his empire would be a constitutional monarchy. Yet, nothing really changed. He kept his grip on power like before, turning the empire into a military dictatorship. People lived in fear as dissenters were silenced, and torture became common. Some even said Bokassa himself took part in brutal punishments. Then, it all ended when international accusations against Bokassa were proven true. It was revealed that he was involved in the tragic massacre of over 50 school children carried out by his imperial guard. This led to French paratroops stepping in and overthrowing Bokassa through a military coup in September 1979. The Republic was brought back, and David Dacko, who had been president before, was put in charge again. Bokassa ran away into exile, first going to Côte d'Ivoire and later moving to France. Even though he was sentenced to death while he was gone in 1980, Bokassa made the surprising choice to return to the Central African Republic in 1986. When he came back, he was arrested and put on trial. By 1987, he was found guilty of murder and other crimes, but accusations of cannibalism were dropped. His death sentence was eventually reduced, and he was released from prison in 1993. Years later, in 2010, Bokassa was officially forgiven as part of the celebrations for the country's 50th anniversary of independence. So, there you have it, everything about Bokassa and his cruel rule. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe so we can come up with amazing content like this.